welcome to Scrappin with Sheri and project recipe number 10. Now there are several moving parts in this project recipe, so I'm just going to kind of dive in, and I want to show you first what I have collected for this project recipe. Now this cardstock was from a cardstock buffet in January of 2025. I think this particular one was called Medium Craft. Great light brownish color. So I'm going to be using that for my borders. I pulled a couple of mats that I felt like were really pretty. A couple of pieces of paper that came with the envelope maker that are a crafty color. I pulled a really pale teal. I have no clue where that came from. But as you can see, this is the one piece of paper that ties this all together. This was an advisor exclusive, and I think it was called Summer something, but I can't be positive on that. But it has all the colors that tie everything else together. And then I pulled a couple of backgrounds. These wood grains came from the secret box in the fall of 2024, the Good Time secret box. So those will be my background papers. So this one I'm going to look at right away, because when I look at my cutting guide, this is the only piece of paper that just has a couple of cuts. And I'm going to use this for these peach colored stripes across here, and they're 5 inches by 12 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut those two and get that out of the way. Now this was the only piece I had left from that collection, but I have been saving it forever, thinking there would be a time that this would be a perfect piece of paper. Now this page won't have any pictures. I am pre-designing lots of pages right now for our grandson who's coming, and so I'm just not really using a lot of pictures, but I think you're going to see how cute this page can work out anyway. Now I'm going to set some of these things aside, but the next thing I want to do is cut my border that's going right here. Now they've used the Teddy Bear Border Maker cartridge. I'm going to be using another baby cartridge, and it's the little onesies. And I don't have the name on it. It was called Jammies at one point, and then I think they changed the name to onesies because of some copyright infringement or something. So I could be backwards on that. But I'm cutting that out of this medium craft cardstock because I wanted a solid color for this. Now, if I had had a darker brown that wasn't quite hot fudge, I would have gone with that. But what I'm looking at is trying to keep this layout really kind of neutral. I mean, we do know that we're having a boy, but I felt like a nice soft neutral would lend itself well to whatever pictures I end up with once he's here. If you have never used the border maker system, there is a whole video about this. So I'm just kind of punching quickly through that to get that part out of the way. All right, so let's empty our scraps off and see what's next. And you can tell I'm going at this very haphazardly. These were 2 mats that I had left from a baby collection. So I'm hanging on to those because I think I want to use them. And what I'm looking at now is the hardest part of the layout is going to be these circles right here. So I want us to check the circles out and see what we can do with them. Now it shows that the circles are cut after you cut your photo mats, but I'm not sure if I'm going to use photo mats or not. So I wanted to go ahead and do my circles first. And when I look, these circles, this outside edge, which is the T, is going to end up against my wood grain. So I want to go with a darker color here, so there's a little bit of contrast, and this is going to be the one for T. So let's look on the back and see how we cut T. T, S, and PQ are cut from the same piece of paper. So when I look at it, it says Q and R, S, and T. For piece T, make 2 cuts on both sides of the medium custom cutting system with the blue blade without moving it. First cut on the inside and then on the outside. First cut on the inside, then on the outside. And we're doing that with the blue blade. I'm gonna grab my blue blade, and this is the medium pattern, and we're gonna cut inside and outside. And I'm pretty sure that I have done a video on the custom cutting system. So if you've not used that before, you may want to look at that video. So we've got T. And it says to discard the smaller circle. You know, I'll put that to the side because I'll probably use it later. We've got T. Then we've got to do S and P and Q. So for S, make 2 cuts on the outside of the smallest custom cutting system pattern with the blue and red blades without moving it. Here's the smallest pattern, and we're doing this on the same color. Now, here's my problem. I'm not going to have enough paper, but if you'll notice, they've done theirs off the edge of the paper anyway, so I'm going to be okay on that. So for S, we're going to use the smallest with the blue and red blades. We're going to do the blue blade first, not move it, and then cut the red blade. So this is going to make a little tiny thin ring. And anytime you're doing a ring, you're going to cut the furthest away from the pattern first. And then I need to go back and cut the red blade because that's the closest to my pattern. And I'm not moving the pattern. And if you noticed, instead of starting right on the edge, I started here, pulled in towards the middle, and then went out and around. So we've got that little ring. I don't think we're going to use that part. And then P and Q. No, it's R and Q. No wonder it kept looking wrong. R and Q. Let's see what it says about those. For Q and R, make 2 cuts on the inside of the largest custom cutting system pattern with the blue and red blades without moving it. First cut on the inside with the blue blade, and then again on the inside with the red blade. And you can tell I am using up all the edge of this paper. First on the inside with the blue blade, and I don't want to start right on this edge so that I jag my paper. I want to start a little bit in, and then go back and forth with that. Then we're going to go back with the red blade, not moving the pattern, and do the same thing. And we are going to use both of those pieces. Looks like a Mickey head. And that piece is done. Now we need the contrasting colors to go inside that. And I decided I would use this really pale aqua color for the inside contrasting patterns, and that's going to be H, I, and G. So let's see what it says about H. For piece H, use the inside of the largest with the red blade. Place the custom cutting system pieces carefully to fit piece H on the leftover. I don't have to worry about the leftover here because I've got this big old piece. And we are using the red blade with this. Largest pattern, red blade inside. All right, got that one. And then I and G. Cut on both sides of the medium pattern with the red blade without moving it. First cut on the inside to create piece G, then on the outside to create piece I. So both of these, red blade, inside first, then outside. Now, I didn't caution you about this, but I hope that you remember that you need to do this on your self-healing mat. You don't want to do this straight on your desktop because you will end up with a mess. And I think probably our hardest part is going to be figuring out which circle pieces go where when we start laying this all out. So let me move some things out of the way. And let's pull our backgrounds back in and start laying these pages out. So right down near the bottom, I've got my little onesies that I punched. See how soft that looks against that? I really like that monochromatic look. I'm going to bring these pretty close to the bottom. Then it shows us our 2 strips. That's where our main color is coming in. We just don't have a lot of color in this layout. Now I noticed here, I am going to have to go up with this because that circle has got to come down below that. So we'll have to kind of play with our spacing to see where that circle is going to end up. And that's going to be G, H, and Q. So G is going to be this one, I think. H. And I'm really just playing to see if I end up with the right ones at all. Let's see what H looks like. H was that one we cut on the corner. G was the smaller one. And then Q is going to be another circle. And I think it's that right there. G, H, and Q. We'll check that in just a second when we start putting these other ones together. Now, I know that T was one of these brown ones. And these just kind of alternate on here. So I'm thinking it probably goes something like that. That's pretty cute. And then it's going to tuck behind there. So let's stick these together. I am going to pull my silicone mat and my repositionable tape to do these. Well, figuring those out wasn't quite as hard as I thought it would be. That's a good thing. You know, when you're cutting these pieces apart, you could even put a letter on the back of them to help you remember which one is which. Fortunately, that puzzle was not terribly hard to piece. And if you get them mixed up, but you like the way it looks, does it really matter? And that's going to be tucked under here. And this one mostly is a show-through. It's not necessarily that we have so many parts and pieces, because most everything is going to be this light aquamarine color, teal, whatever it is, showing through. I'm just trying to get my spacing even around those outside edges because it's not a full circle. It's a little bit harder. But if you had cut this all from the same pieces of paper, it would have been the same way because it still wouldn't have been a full circle. You would have been using leftover space. This is so cute. Now, if you have the circle maker, I think you could have done basically the same thing with it. You would have had to play around with the sizing a little bit. And then we'll tuck that behind there. And wow, that's the bulk of this page. So let's go ahead and stick some pieces and parts down. Now I'm looking at where to place this to get this little circle in without it going off the bottom. And that looks like about where it needs to go. So I'm going to put some tape on my border, on the little onesie border. And it probably tells me in the directions about where to place things. You know how I am about not reading directions very well, though. It also calls for the teddy bear border, and I do have that, but I am just crazy about this little onesie border. I think it is so cute. And if you notice, I'm using repositionable tape on everything right now, because if I have to start moving things around, I don't want it to tear my background paper all up. And then, let's see, this actually goes behind that because there's a mat that's going to cover this. So I'm going to use repo on this as well. And I'm thinking right now that I might want the little onesies to come up over the edge of this white, just so they stand out just a touch more. Yay for repositionable tape, huh? The hardest part of this layout to me is just getting all my spacing right. But once we get one page done, the other will be easier. I don't know how many of you notice it too, but I tend to lay out my pages, and then for some reason, I tend to start by making my left-hand page. My right-hand page. I don't know why I do that. Okay, that's got tape on it. So let's stick that there. And then let's go to this side. Now on that one, that whole circle goes behind. I'm going to start by taping this down because we know we like the little onesies over the edge of this paper. And I'll just line these two papers up side by side. And line these up. And we'll give the onesie some good tape. Seems a little crooked on the bottom right there. And here again, I'm going to line these up just so my onesies are about the same height. And then we're going to slide that right underneath. It goes pretty far down. Almost looks like a little rainbow right there on the edge. All right. So, because we have to cover up this, I am going to go ahead and cut a few mats. And I did pull a couple of mats that I showed you to begin with. So when I look at their layout, they've got a mat that goes up and down over here. And I really like this. I like that contrast with the browns. I need something here. I liked this because it's got that tape look. And I'm going to pull that one right up here just to bring in a little more color. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4 more mats to finish this out. And I'm looking at what color I want to go with. This one is just a shade different, and I could easily get 4 mats out of that. So that's what I'm going to go with. And I'm going to pull, nope, just a touch too big. I love that photo trimmer, but it doesn't work this time. So these mats, let's see, I'm looking at the size height-wise, 3 3/4. They're all 3 3/4. So let's cut a 3 3/4. And then we need a 5 1/4. And the other one is 4 3/4. That's almost 4 3/4, not quite. But you know what? I may use it that way anyway. I kind of like having that extra space to show off those cute little buttons. And then I need 2 more over here. So let's see how wide this is. That's about 5 3/4. So let's cut it down to 3 3/4. We'll get us 2 more mats out of that. You know, a lot of times it's just playing around with your paper to see what you can actually get out of what you got. Since I'm using bits and pieces and not a collection, it makes it a little bit different. So I've got several different photo sizes on here. I like that. I do like this, although I think I'm going to turn that to the inside edge now. And then the very last thing I'm looking at is they've added little strips up here to journal with. I'm not going to do that because I very likely will put another photo there. I also do not have embellishments that match this currently. And I'm okay with that. I don't feel like every page has to have bunches of stickers and embellishments. Let's just stick all this down real quick. And you know me, I do like things to kind of touch, so I'm scooting that under the edge there. This is my regular tape. I know a lot of people don't put any mats on until they're ready to put the photos on, but I can do a lot of overlapping and be okay with it. I am going to pull out the 0 centering ruler and see if I can line these mats up kind of top to bottom a little bit. And when I'm doing this, I'm looking at the lines on my ruler, the ones that go across, to see which ones would best suit where I want these mats to end up. And that's going to give me the closest spacing between the top and bottom. And then I'm kind of eyeballing what I've got going on otherwise. I want the side to sides to be about the same. And I've also got those cute little buttons on there that are helping me line up. So that page is stuck down. And let's make the top of this one about the same height as those two, just for a little continuity over here. I am going to scoot that over so it's about equal distance here and here. I don't feel like this one matters so much because it's a different size than the one opposite it. And you know, I actually may end up with it that way, but for now I'm going to put it this way. I can always develop 2 or 3 pictures on one little sheet there and be okay with that. I like that this provides me a title without actually having a title. So I will not cover up that little "My Darling." I'll just put a picture in here. But there's our sketch without embellishments. It's still really, really cute. And when the pictures come, I will obviously add journaling. But there's project recipe 10. The only thing that ties it all together is this one sheet of paper right here. But I think the effect is really pretty. We've got a really soft, neutral page ready for some baby pictures. So, sketch or project recipe 10. And until I see you next time, happy scrapping.